It says this hangout on there is live. I don't know if I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, I suppose I could check it out.
Apparently, we're live.
Go over to YouTube and see if we're streaming or not. You're trying to get off Twitter, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I I don't know. It's like I just feel like Twitter has trained me to like always be concerned with notifications and get excited every time I get a notification, and it's like I just don't want to rely on it as much as I think I've been relying on it.
Yeah. Well,
Have you ever
that's
felt that way or no?
yeah. There's times when because I wake up in the morning and I think a lot of people do this. The first thing I do is pick up your phone and just start looking at everything that happened while you were asleep. And I was thinking about that, and it's like, man, I'm trained and I waste a lot of time in the morning getting up to this, and I should be getting up to other more interesting things. But yeah, the yeah, I guess I get excited whenever I see a message and stuff like that, and I don't know. Yeah, we do invest too much time in our phones and social media and that. So
The thing is I'm checking it way too much, and so I try to break off of it. I think I had like a meltdown sometime last week, and I decided that I was going to quit Twitter. And then, but unfortunately, I just recorded a conversation with a YouTube host, and so the only way that he was able to get in touch with me was Twitter because he didn't have my phone number. So there's people that I try to sync with occasionally, and like they only know my Twitter handle. They don't have like my number. So
yeah, I guess maybe the handing out phone numbers, maybe we were all trained, I think, younger, like don't give away personal information, and the phone number is one of those things. But really, it's just another communication mode.
well, with cell phones, you could just block them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's it feels like it's more precious, but it really like it isn't at all. I don't know. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, maybe you could just remove Twitter from your phone and then
I,
just leave desktop option open.
I I did, and the person replied on a YouTube comment, "Hey, I tried to send you a DM on Twitter, but you have it configured such that only your something where like it's just harder for them to connect." Make a long story short, I left a comment on his YouTube channel, and then he replied, and then but he couldn't get a hold of me. So almost everybody knows that I'm available on Twitter, even though they don't know that I don't look at it anymore. And so he had to tell me on YouTube, "Hey, I'm trying to get with you on Twitter. Check your message." And then I had to reluctantly go back to Twitter. But I got 16 notifications, and I haven't clicked on the notifications to see what they were. So
Well, that's willpower. That's tough. I mean, I don't know if you ever read that or heard that book, Hooked. I think it's called Hooked anyways. Talks about habit forming products and how those little notifications are a cue, and then it causes a thing to go off, and eventually you get in the habit. You know what I've found is kind of nefarious is actually LinkedIn's notifications, because I'll go on there and they just invent notifications that I don't care about. It's not like it's not like someone's talking to me, or and Twitter's starting to do this too. It's like here's somebody posted this interesting article over here. Well, I don't care about that. That's not something you should notify me about. But
They know that when you get a notification, you'll go back into their app.
yeah, and so you get one every single day, whether there's something notification worthy or not. Which I guess it works. So does Nikeza have notifications yet, or?
I think I pushed the update several days ago. I slowed down a lot on it. Um, I've been working on the mobile piece of it. The the short answer is no. Um, but I've been really enjoying doing the mobile piece. It's just I'm busy trying to find work, and I don't know. I have excuses for days for why I haven't deployed everything yet.
Sure. So it's not out there where people can get at it yet, or is it still? I mean,
The
they can get at it because it's open source, but
the website is there, but there's some very, very bad performance bottlenecks. Just because I haven't wrote asynchronous code to like basically make long story short, the screen locks up when you have hella content on the World Wide Web.
Mhm.
And so I don't know when you're trying to pull the content of like any content provider like .NET Rocks or John Samez or anybody like that, in which they have thousands, or even people that are like Stack Overflow stars that they've answered like hundreds of questions and they have like hundreds of articles over the past like 10, 15 years. It takes forever to load in all their data. I don't know if you, I think I told you what Nikeza was. Um, but I just need to start making some modifications so that uh, the the pages they just get loaded fluidly with data versus them like being tied up with the UI and then like 5 seconds later they finally get populated with data. So I'm not a web
Hmm.
developer, so I've never like dealt with pagination or I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Pagination.
Pagination, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that
Well, you're a web developer now, so.
no, I'm not because I haven't done anything with the web part of it. I'm more interested in the mobile part. I like native. Web is taking over, unfortunately. It took over. It won the war. No matter how much I protested, web apps have won.
No, no, it
They
hasn't.
have. They
No,
have.
no. Well, yeah, but now native is just going around it and saying, well, if you're not going to go native and we have to put everything in the browser, then we'll just put native in the browser. So,
Well, so with a lot of these mobile um, job descriptions, they want to basically take a web application and throw it inside of a shell of a mobile app. So they don't want to get rid of their JavaScript developers. They just want to hold on to them. And I mean, I think my understanding is just a deployment story for like sending updates without needing as much. I don't know. Everybody gets annoyed, except with the exception of what used to be Windows Phone and Android. With Apple's App Store, like you'll try to post an update and you'll just wait a while before it gets accepted
yeah.
and approved by the App Store. So I've just noticed that there's quote unquote hybrid mobile apps where they basically want you to leverage JavaScript or whatever related technologies to build a mobile application.
Yeah, isn't that the progressive web app thing, or is that something
I don't
else?
know. I never looked up the definition of progressive web app. I'm starting to hear that buzzword a lot or that buzz term a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I think that's basically what it is, but essentially they give you more options on the platform and you can load it from the web, but yeah.
no, so like also there's You what editor do you use for building software?
Visual Studio and Code. Visual
Okay.
Studio and Visual Studio Code usually.
So I think there's something called the Atom editor or something like
Yeah.
that. Does that sound familiar?
Yep.
Where some of these desktop applications are actually using this technology. I don't know if it's a
Electron.
framework. What is Electron? Is it a framework or is it like?
Yeah, for a very short period of time, I was the number one answer on Stack Overflow for Electron. So um, no, it's so basically what Electron is they took Chromium, the rendering engine that Chrome uses. So Chrome adds a lot more on top of it that's Google specific, but the core of it's Chromium, and they combined it with Node. Um, and so what it allows you to do is it allows you to get access to all of the desktop related or all of the stuff you can't get access to on the web. So you can get access to like the file system and all that stuff through Node. Um, and so you launch like this main process, and then you spawn off render processes, which are Chromium instances, and then you can load up JavaScript from the web and just have it just purely be a specialized browser, and you can have all of the rules around it that a normal web browser has. Or you can poke holes through and say, well, I want to give access to these particular front end or these particular desktop APIs that are normally not accessible from the web. Um, uh, and or you could just go completely, have it all self-contained and it loads JavaScript from your file system, and it's just like any other desktop app out there. So it's really cool.
So is
But
it fair to say that it's still a browser, except it's a browser for desktop applications?
yeah. I mean, it's the same browser technology. Just the really, I mean, when you get down to it, the key difference is that you can load stuff from the file system, and you can actually get access to the machine from it. So like if you just started browsing around and you turned off all of the if you opened up Electron, you started browsing around the web, you maybe wrote a little title bar or something so you could browse the web easy, and you turn off all the security around the web, you would essentially open yourself up to all sorts of potential badness from a security perspective. So people have to be careful when they build apps in it. But yeah, I mean, it it's got a wide variety of things that it can be used for. To give an example of one case where I used it, so I don't know if you've ever given a presentation before, or no, never mind, it's not a presentation. So I did a talk at KCDC last year on Phaser, which is a JavaScript framework for building games. And the documentation, when you go through, it says, well, you need a web server to do this because of because you can't load content from your disk in the way that they loaded. So to get around that, I just downloaded Electron and then targeted Electron and turned off the security stuff so it could load up. And so now Phaser loaded up just fine after that, and I didn't have to have a web server running to host up the files. So yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It's the web, but it's a little bit different.
You're such a nerd.
So I wrote a while ago. Actually, I used Electron to write like a proof of concept where I think I used, I don't know. I might have wrote a binding framework in JavaScript or just Knockout or something. And what I did is I used this thing called Electron Edge, which connects up Node to .NET. And so what I had to do is I wrote a view model in .NET, and then I bound it in the JavaScript side or on the HTML form, and it all went back and forth. And I was able to do just a basic number increment with that. This was three years ago now, maybe. So
Oh wow.
it was when Electron was a baby. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said, you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. So
So are you primarily a JavaScript
Me?
programmer? I know the popular answer is no, I write tool for the job, but like, what do you tend to?
I
What's your preferred language?
C Sharp's my primary language. It's the one I'm most comfortable in. JavaScript, I'm probably second now. I mean, which I think is pretty common, right? You're kind of a back end developer, but you got to do front end development too, kind of stuff. So um, lately, I've been doing a lot of stuff in the browser with Vue JS or through my job. So um, uh, JavaScript seems to be getting better, but it's still a pain in the neck to work with. A lot of stuff goes wrong, but I think that's probably more just that the interactions on the client side are harder to think through than the client side code, and so it's easier to just mess stuff up, especially because you don't have the strongly typed. Although I have been looking at Elm, and if I could pick that up in an actual, I could get paid to do it. That would be kind of a fun thing to dig into. But
I'll give you. I think I'll provide you a link of my first stab at building a web application using Elm. There's some things that I don't know if you actually looked at that file. Like I think the main file, um, I actually think it's called main.elm or home.elm, whatever the name of that file is. Like it's almost 2,000 lines of code, and the thing is, it's like I tried to figure out how to like reduce that footprint because I mean, if you have 2,000 lines of code, regardless, like I think there's opportunities to decouple things. But make long story short, I'm not sure how deep you got into Elm or not, but it kind of like constricts you or constrains you, shall I say, to write a certain way. But at the same time, okay, first let me ask you, have you spent much time practicing with Elm?
I sat and I tried to tinker with it a bit. It became immediately obvious to me that I couldn't figure out how to get beyond the how to get a sufficiently complex website put together with it. Like for a small chunk, it's really really cool, but then like how do you structure it well to add a lot of content to it and a lot of pages and a lot of interactions without having, like you said, big massive, like here's all my commands for 50 pages or something. Like, yeah, it's
So here's the thing, and I've checked into this, and the feedback that I got is I'm SOL. But basically, what I'm saying is like the main page. I'm not a web developer, so I don't know what you call the main page. Like the index page,
mhm.
um, it's going to be like hella code. Um, but then all the other pages of that web application can be normal. Like I can refactor it as much as I like, but it's like I'm pretty much I had to define like all these messages up front. It's hard for me to. I haven't looked at the actual web application in like maybe 4 or 5 months, but all I remember is like the main page of the application has so much plumbing in it for all the other pages to be able to work with.
Yeah,
I can't really articulate it right now because it's I don't know. I don't do web development, and like all I can say is like there's just a funky. I won't say funky. There's just an unfamiliar way of doing things that really mess with my OCD because I was trying. I'm really into like having light footprints of files, and this like main page that's responsible for getting into the application. Like I feel like I had no choice but for it to be filled with like just hella plumbing everywhere. So
yeah,
if you revisit my GitHub for Nikeza, you'll see what I'm talking about.
yeah. I found, I think I found a couple examples of Elm sites that looked like they were well modularized. And yeah, there were, massive switch statements in a couple places, to just, I don't know, it is a switch in Elm, right? They call it that. They don't call it a mat or a
Uh, no,
or
no.
a pet.
Well,
Yeah.
it may it's Elm is still functional programming,
Yeah.
so the cool people say pattern matching.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the actual keyword switch to initiate it. But
Yeah, I
the
forget.
but yeah, there was a couple places where it still had that, but it was it was kind of like you had to pattern match against uh, nested kind of like, I don't know, function calls or ones with like long set of parameters, so you could kind of go into the next chain. But I don't know. Yeah, I never got into it much because of it. Like you said, that exact reason. There's a lot of
Boilerplate.
inability to just kind of uh, to kind of peel off one subsection of it and say I'm going to work on this without. And maybe that's a good thing. Um, be, but yeah, the small footprint thing is pretty good. Although, in C sharp world, what bothers me is like files that have, you open it up and there's like, it's an entire file just for like one interface. That's like one method on one interface. Do you ever encounter that? Like, I mean, I think everyone does. It's like one file per, one class or interface or whatever per module. But
Yeah, one file per class.
yeah, I've come to start to hate that because it just gets to be like really massive in a lot of cases, and or like I have a bunch of small things in kind of like a bigger, you know, uh, a bunch of smaller classes sometimes in the same kind of space. I don't want to have to create a new file for every single one of them.
Well, I got annoyed with I think Xamarin provides this as well with events. So an event, and I'm not talking about like a .NET event. I'm just talking about an arbitrary event. It's just data. All it is something happened. That's what an event is. And so with like some of the NuGet libraries that I've created, like I created this message bus library. I represent events as a string, and that's it, right? But like what you were venting over is in some like frameworks, you have to literally create an entire class to represent an event. I think with the Prism framework, I think it's very similar where you have to create an entire class to represent an event of something happened. You can't just do, public string my favorite event equals, and then within double quotes, my favorite event. You literally have to create a whole class. And I don't know. I feel your pain.
Yeah, it's probably similar to so I use Mediator. I've been using Mediator now for a while, and I like the because it's just kind of like a secret. Are you familiar with Mediator?
Nope. Are you talking
Okay.
about the design pattern? What are you talking about?
Well, no, it's Mediator with TR without the O is the name of it. It's by Jimmy Bogard, the guy who created Automapper, if you're familiar with that project. Um,
Yeah, I'm familiar with
but
it.
in order to so you can define commands or queries or whatever. They're all just I request interface, and so you have to create a class, and that's your I request. Then you have a handler that implements another interface. So you essentially have to create a class and a whole uh, another class for a handler just to essentially do, you want a function that gets called. I mean, really, that's what you want is you want a function handler, one to take a message and set it to just a single function, but you have all this kind of ceremony to get that. Um, there is kind of a way that I found to do. You could do it with with a dependency injection container and using delegates, and then just like a class with a with like a factory to make the delegate. Um, I found a way to kind of do the same thing, but it's kind of
As soon as you said
yeah.
container, I stopped listening.
Well, the container is just
I know
just
what
a
a
good way to
container is.
yeah
I had an interview last week for an architect position, and they were asking me about containers, and I couldn't help but tell them how much I hated containers and how it's a glorified dictionary with a with some added features to it, and it's just it's just glamorized for no reason.
yeah. I mean,
Like
it's
you don't
the
have. I was like, you don't have to have a traditional IOC container. Like you don't have to use Ninject. You don't have to use Unity. You can literally create a class, or you could literally create an object of type dictionary in which the key value pair is going to be an interface. Well, really a type. That type is going to map to an interface, and then the actual value is going to be like just an instance of an object, and you could just use that. But I don't even want to do that. I usually just inject in the constructor whatever my dependencies are, and I don't have to deal with the IOC container. Um, uh, Again, I mean, I see its usefulness. It's just half the time people don't understand how to write tests, and so they don't realize the extra work that you have to take into consideration if you're really writing testable code. And usually with containers, you're introducing state that's managed statically, and you need to do a teardown explicitly within your unit test to clear out all that data for the next test to run in complete isolation. And I usually lose people when I start saying that.
hmm.
Anyways,
Yeah. I suppose if you're doing kind of full integration testing, that would be unit testing. It's not a problem, but yeah,
well,
I can see that.
it's from my experience, like a container still is like I thought a static. Well, you have an instance of a container, but there's some static pieces that I remember that I have to do explicit like teardowns where I have to clear the dictionary, clear the container, so that it doesn't affect other tests.
Is that for
Anyway,
broader integration testing, or is that
no, I'm just talking about unit testing. Like
okay,
when you have a
like
static class, in general, then you have to literally, as long as for the lifetime, as long as that assembly is loaded, right? This is my understanding. As long as that runtime has loaded in that assembly, then your static class is going to basically, or your static data via a static class is going to live in memory
well, yeah, but
until it's the program terminates. And so, like in the
I
unit
never
test,
like when I'm unit testing, I never instantiate the dependency injection container. I like I'll create mocks and inject the mocks, but but that I do all by hand
okay.
for I mean, I could see it being problematic with let's say more component testing. Um, if you wanted to also test that the dependency injection framework is actually working the way you expect it to, that would have actually been probably handy. I had a bug this week where we had deleted we had accidentally deleted a dependency injection like a registration, and and we went for like 2 months and didn't even know. Luckily, it's not a production thing yet, but we went for a couple of months and didn't even know it was missing. So
Oh
um,
wow.
it was like, oh wow, that got deleted. How did we let that happen? But yeah,
Oh yeah. There's no switch statement, and I sent you a link. It's pattern matching. It's basically case and then whatever value, and then and then you have your different cases that you pattern match on.
yeah, maybe I mistook that it was. I might have just in my brain. Yeah, that's right. I in my brain I swapped out switch or I associated case with switch for obvious reasons, and so I was thinking that it was the key. It started with a switch on something case or whatever. But
I'm not proud of this code at all. I mean, I did the best I could do based on me learning a language and building something at the same time. But this is long, man. This is what I get pissed off at other people for. Anyways,
yeah, I wonder if this is the one. There was one I was looking at that I for Elm that I thought was really good. It was by C Coster 22 on GitHub. Somebody I watched at KCDC last year give a talk. I think it's this one app. It's he had a lightning talk one on it, but it's kind of a larger Elm app. It seems to be laid out really well. Oh, I'll look at the model and yeah, this is exactly the one. But anyways, yeah, it seems like a pretty large app, but it's broken up in ways that it feels manageable. There is a lot of large case statements though, or pattern matching going on in places.
because my main.elm is almost 2,200 lines.
Yeah. So he's got it all split up in that. So might be a good one to take a look at. And I think there's a video out there of the talk that he gave on it, but it's more about kind of evangelizing for Elm, I think, than it is talking about the code itself and the structure of it.
He doesn't. His is only 35 lines, but he doesn't. He's not. He only has two functions: main and init. Anyway, I'm done with Elm. I don't plan on doing web development. I tried.
So what is it that you just don't like about web? I mean, we've had this conversation before. Is it just that because it's the UI interactions are just unfamiliar and you don't like dealing with them, or
I don't like. Well, one is yes, it's not familiar to me. Two is I don't feel like I'm engineering. I feel like I'm just duct taping things together and crossing my fingers and jumping on one foot 3 times.
Yeah, I know how you feel.
And the thing is that may not be the actual experience. I know, for example, like I think like TypeScript is like really popular, and that adds some management to the chaos with type safety or whatever. I don't like HTML at all. Like I really love XAML, and
See, I hate XAML.
I love that. Well, is it because you started off with HTML and CSS?
I mean, I had done some CSS and stuff before, but what I don't like, what I don't like is, well, what I do like about HTML and CSS is that's the fact that there's two things and the styling is really split out. I know you can split out styling and structure within XAML, but it's almost all inline. There isn't like here's just the styling in this file over here. I don't know. At least I haven't understood it well enough to get it to work the way I want it to work, which is basically just how you do HTML and CSS. I'm sure I'd like it more when I get into it, but the applications of it are a lot less too. There's so much more you can do with HTML and CSS. I mean, for me, ideally, what I would like to have is HTML, CSS for the markup and styling, and then everything else be C# and which is almost just TypeScript with.
I mean, so with Xamarin Forms 3.0, I believe they added a feature for styling that CSS. So to appease you web developers that make up like 95% of web application development, So yeah, in Xamarin Forms 3.0, I'm almost positive there's CSS support.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call myself a strictly web developer either. I mean, like I do web because I'm that's what my job is, but and that's like one thing. But I did a lot of more systems programming type stuff early on, and actually, come to think of it, if I'm really being honest, I'm better versed in C than I am in JavaScript. I still get confused with stuff in JavaScript, but um, so but I just don't want you to call us you web developers. Like,
What you mean, you?
what do you mean? Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos on video game development. Like, I think you guys are a different breed, man. Is it okay if I say you guys? Because you do game development too, right?
Well, see, there's a well, yeah, but yes, but on all of this. So I'm actually like the game part of it. Um, like I'm not as into as most people are. Like I haven't played many games for a while, but I really like the technology aspect of games because it's super interesting. Way more interesting than most things that I work on in a day. So like creating physics systems or just getting having to port to different platforms and dealing with differences there. It can be a headache, but there's sometimes some interesting challenges there. Um, and there's just you can pretty much build a game in every language and every platform and using any technology or stack or like there's just a lot of options. So, but yeah, I don't know. Anyways, continue.
Well, I was just fascinated with. I just feel like game developers, they just, and maybe it's just the fact that I'm seeing it on YouTube and I'm not like at an actual like software shop where you have your typical 9 to 5 or game developers. So I mean, I guess there's bias, but it just seems like they're way more into their crafts and like they're invested and they take it personal. But then again, I find it on YouTube, and so I've never like worked in a game shop to like really make that type of judgment. So, um,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't worked in a professional game capacity at all. I mean, I'm mostly a hobbyist. I think a lot of people are independent hobbyist type stuff, and you know, yeah, they do take it pretty seriously, but um, I think it's more to them than just a paycheck. So in most cases,
I mean,
so
I was looking at some of these developers, and like, I mean, I don't know what reality is, but it seems like these indie game developers are like sacrificing like a year, 2 years of their life, like 40, 50 hours, like a year or 2 years until they finally like are ready to share their creation. And I just have a huge amount of respect for someone that can go that long from imagination to actually publishing. Um, it's just different. Like I
yeah,
think with normal like enterprise developers, we're like very short term, like very like uh we think in like I don't know 3 week sprints and like we're not really marathon programmers. I mean, I guess back in the day we probably were, you know, when releases took like 16 months. But it's I don't know. I just feel like I think there's something special with the psyche of a game developer and what motivates them and I'm curious what's different about their philosophy of how they build software and what controls they use to manage complexity. Like that whole ecosystem, I'm a virgin to. Like I know nothing about it, but I just want to learn more about that culture and learn more about their philosophy of of how to build and how to manage quality.
Yeah. So from what I've seen, you're right. Like there is to me a different like difference between enterprise or business development and game development. There's a different to the point where I don't even think that oftentimes those two don't walk in the same circles. Like you go to conferences and you will find some professional game developers or some that have worked in it, but not a lot. But they're out there. There's out there by the droves. There's game developers. So it seems like there's definitely kind of a separateness to it. As far as game developers that work for actual professional companies that are doing games, I'm sure that they deliver code very very similar to enterprisey people, but it depends too on whether it's an ongoing game or if it's like a release that we're getting out this year and we need to get it out and then start on the next one. And um, that's probably a different
The
atmosphere
crunch, the crunch.
entirely. Yeah. I'm sure that quality goes by the wayside, but I mean, the systems themselves are can be very very complex. So I mean, it would be interesting to see how AAA games are made and what kinds of techniques they use to keep the complexity down there. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think with the smaller time hobbyist or indie game devs, it's because they're not just doing software development, they're also doing like an art or a craft along with it. So they're invested in the art, the feel, the game design, and the not just the technology aspect of it. And they actually care about the subject matter. I talked about this. I gave this talk at CodeMash in January, kind of related tangential to this subject. And I talked about how one of my other friends, Derek, who lives in Canada, he's been working on software for transportation for years. And he's really passionate about what he does. But if you asked him if he was really passionate about transportation, it's no, that just happens to be the domain he's in. You could jump in and probably get into accounting or insurance or whatever. And as long as there's interesting problems in a technologies aspect, they'll be fine. But game developers, I think, are often very, very passionate about the domain itself, along with the technology that goes with it. Some may be more passionate about the domain than the actual technology, but I don't know. Like you said, the ones that stay with it for a year and work on it every day and stuff. Other things with that is that they're also entrepreneurs, and that to me, I want to have that ability to keep focus on something for that long. It's like a superpower to me. That's something elusive that I can't seem to get wrangled up. But I jump from project to project so too quickly. So
Yeah, I think with me is like once I feel like I've learned something, I rethink, okay, do I really need to go all the way and cross the finish line with my declaration of this is what I'm going to build? Or can I take what I've learned from this project since I've learned so much that I don't really need to complete this? Completing it is just asking for validation. Like, so for example, with like Nikeza in the web application part, like I learned Elm, okay? Is it really that important for me to make the web application perform it and have a flawless user experience and I don't like web development? Like, or can I can I declare victory that I built a web platform that halfway works, right? It's not the best user experience, but I've demonstrated that I could take a functional programming language, two of them, one for the browser and the other one for a server, and basically streamline different content from Stack Overflow to YouTube to Medium.com to WordPress, and periodically throughout the day, for every registered user, take all their content, discover new content, and publish it to their subscribers. I did it. Do I really have to go above and beyond and polish everything? And so I was like, no, I want to do the mobile part now. So I give this whole speech because, to what you said, no, I didn't. I I didn't spend a year and a half working on and polishing a web application that I said I was going to deliver. What I did do is I delivered a web application that works, but probably no one wants to use it because it's a painful user experience. It's slow. But the hardcore requirements, like the business requirements, have been satisfied. The user experience requirements have not. And so, where's more value? Where's return on investment? Return on investment is learning, practicing, and no one can deny that I know how to do this now. I could get better at the UX or the artistic part. So, and that's the thing. If we go back into like these indie developers, I feel like it's probably different. Like I feel like they can't cop out and say, "Oh, I just learned something during this, so I don't have to work on this anymore." I feel like they're more compelled to like finish what they started.
Well, yeah,
Just
because I mean they've got a vision for the thing that they want to build, and they were, I mean, really invested in that thing. Now with Nikeza, it sounded like originally that you were very invested in the concept and the idea and making it happen.
I'm
Um,
invested in the mobile part. I've reinforced
but
that
but
I'm
the
not interested in the web
well,
part.
yeah, but take the technology and throw it aside for a
Okay.
second. The actual core mission of what you originally said Nikeza was for is being able to make someone undeniable, right? In terms of here's all of my web content and things I've contributed and stuff. Um, like that mission, um, I think depends a lot on a web part of it being there and being delivered and getting it out on the web where people can actually interact with it and give feedback and you know you can build a group of it or a following around it. Some game developers, not all game developers, there's a lot of people that just they start like me. Start on something and then I jump to another thing like a week later because I can't keep focus on anything for too long for whatever reason.
Yeah, it was a couple things. One is to be a servant of the functional programming community and and try to lead by example by saying that functional programming languages aren't just for people that have PhDs. It's not just for machine learning or accounting or anything like that. You can build like real world applications using a completely different paradigm. And so that was part of the mission statement for the Lambda cartel, if you remember that,
Yeah.
is demonstrate and document how we can leverage functional programming languages and their associated ecosystems towards building traditional or to cater to business needs, building like business applications. So that was the other part. I'm just more interested in the native part of it than I am the web. Like
Yeah.
it's yeah. Anyways, it was something else I wanted to run by you that wasn't related to any of this. Um, I can't remember right now.
Hmm.
Oh, are you gonna be at the? You're in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to be at NDC?
Well, no, because it happened last week, but
Are you serious?
yeah.
It happened already? Oh
Yeah.
man.
I
Okay.
submitted some talks to it. I didn't get accepted. A couple of people that I work with, or that work for the client that I work with, one person um, got flown in from the UK to give a talk, which was really cool, about Docker on Windows. And then a couple people went, and somebody I work with on my team went and volunteered there to for whatever the conference volunteers do. So yeah, it was this last week.
You mean like the same time during the build conference?
Yeah, although I think build was what, Monday, Tuesday, or something like that, and I think this was Wednesday, Thursday. So,
Okay.
and then PyCon's I think going on too. So it's a busy week for conventions.
All right. I'm kind of disappointed because I was going to consider going up there.
Yeah.
You just ruined all that. So
Well, I think there's still, I don't know, Minnesota Developer Conference, and I don't know, but yeah, none of them are as big as NDC was for Minnesota. Hopefully it went well, so they do another one next year, but that'll be another year. I,
okay.
I, uh, I was gonna try to submit to Kansas KCDC in Kansas City again this year, which that one is really good, um, really good. And it's fairly large too. It felt, for as far as the um, the conference attendees and what I saw in NDC and the number of tracks and stuff, KCDC seemed bigger overall. Um, but I have a camping thing right after it this year, and I was kind of like, you know what, I'm not going to submit a talk because if I get accepted, I'm going to have to work on it, and I wanted to work. I have some other things that I wanted to work on, and like I don't know.
Why are
I
you
keep
doing talks? Like, what's the driving force behind that?
I don't know. I think original before, honestly, before I think what it is that I wanted to go to conference. I wanted to go to a couple conferences because I had only been to one other one before. And I don't currently, the place that I work currently right now, we're too small. We don't have enough funds to really like just send people randomly to conferences or whatever, or even targetedly. Um, so I mean, it's kind of a hack, but giving a talk basically makes it so you can go to conferences for cheap, right?
Mm,
Because if you talk at least at any significant conference, you'll have at least your hotel paid for, and your conference ticket itself. Which is, I mean, if you're doing it yourself, it's probably $1,000 or something just for those, at least for those two things. Um, and some of them will pay for travel, but so I figure it's just kind of a way to get into these things kind of for without the expense. Um, so I talked to KCDC, and then I talked to CodeMash in January, which is another really really cool one, and that's
that's in
over by
Sandusky,
your,
right?
yeah, over by your stomping grounds. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know. I went to them, and there's some exciting things to like you get into, but a lot of the talks I go to, there are a few that were really good, but like a lot of it's really intro y stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to land value in some of them. But
Hence why I'm not regular at meetup groups down here in Miami because it's like it's always on a JavaScript framework or intro to unit testing. And I'm like, have we not evolved? I mean, I'll show up every once in a while just to like show support, but yeah, for the exact same thing, it's like I think sometimes we take for granted how many years we have in the game, and if Robert C. Martin is right, I think he says every 5 years the number of developers doubles. And he said, I don't know if he said 90% of developers or 50% of developers have less than 5 years experience. But sometimes I just have to remind myself that I've been doing this since like 2003. And so,
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's even a lot longer than that's a lot longer than I've been doing it. So I've got I'm coming up on I think a decade now. So, but it's weird because I mean that shouldn't be that. I should I shouldn't be considered that senior right now. But with 10 years, but like most of the places I go, I am, and it's because I think I hit that exact lull between the people that survived the 2000s and then like the next the bubble bursting or whatever, and then that next group that started right after. I'm at the front end of that, um, where there was a huge lull in programmers going to college and getting degrees and starting work. um, so because I'm in that range, I'm at the beginning of it. I think I'm like the edge of the millennial developers is what I am, like the top edge of it.
mm.
So, but
Did you go to university?
yeah, yeah,
So you have a traditional either computer science or computer engineering degree?
yeah, computer science and philosophy. I got a philosophy degree too. So,
Do you, I think about this a lot. Do you think you have a advantage over most developers? Do you think you have an advantage over developers that didn't go the formal training route?
um, no. In fact, I did a interview with the IT Career Energizer podcast. I think my episode will be coming out here within the next couple of weeks. And I think one of the questions he asked is, if you were getting in right now, what would you do? And I said, like, skip the college degree. It's just kind of honestly, I mean, I think that there is kind of a spectrum of developers. If you take everyone in the world and just kind of lay them out, there's some people that just will never get programming, just cannot get it. And then there's a group in the middle that's very very like just kind of middle of the road. And then there's a group where it just clicks, and you wouldn't need to go to school, you would have figured this out on your own. um, and I honestly feel like I'm in that group where I could have just figured it out on my own. I mean, there were things that I learned in school that may have been valuable with regards to to programming, but most of the value I got out of is just forcing yourself to do the projects to actually to learn the stuff and get going in it. And then it also helps just landing a job. But um, beyond just landing a job, if I sat down with someone who um, is in that same kind of thing where they get programming, you know, I don't feel like I'd have some sort of advantage if they didn't have a degree and I did, and I do. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Yeah, it
uh,
does.
yeah.
I think there's one class that I would highly recommend for formal training because I honestly don't think, I mean, I'm wrong about a lot of things, but I think it would be very challenging for a self-taught developer to really appreciate the value of the course of data structures and algorithms. So like having to implement a B plus tree and red black tree and discuss big O notation on all the different algorithms of a radix sort, selection sort, all the different types of sorts. Like I still got my university book in my closet for algorithms and data structures, and it's just something that whenever I run into some like performance issues that has nothing to do with IO. It has everything to do with in memory, just processing of some data. I have to every once in a while I have to like review my algorithms. I'm like, oh, could I be doing this differently? Because right now, like this performance sucks, and all this is done in memory.
Yeah.
And
Although, just about zero of that is needed if you're pushing a button around a page a little bit and then causing a click to go and trigger an HTTP request to the server. So it's, I
yeah,
mean, it's very little, but um, actually, come to think of it, yeah, I mean, there is value in that and knowing that, just being aware that not everything is infinitely performant, like it's fast on my machine. Well, have you tried it on someone else's machine? And your algorithm might be slow, the hardware might be compensating for it, yeah, stuff like that. Being aware of performance and how selections you make can affect that is for sure. Another class, actually, come to think, that I think was valuable is and I didn't really realize it until maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, was there's I think I took a computer organization and assembly course, and understanding how the machine actually works at a lower level, and how memory addresses and stuff like that.
stack and
Um,
heap.
yeah, and being able to understand um, all of that, I think was, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was quite valuable. But um, could I be an effective programmer without either of those courses? Yeah, probably, for most of the work that I do. Um, Maybe if I doubt if I was doing something where I don't even know. There's something probably where having an intimate knowledge of those things is really, really valuable, but most of the stuff that I do isn't that way. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's CRUD operations back and forth with applying a couple business rules here and there. So
Like, I don't know. Part of me is a hater, and I'll just be honest. Like, there's some self-taught developers that are like, they're like two, three times better than me. All right, just being honest, they are more, or
yeah,
maybe more productive than me. Maybe that's a better term. Um, but I feel like I'm being a hater because I just feel like I feel like a blue collar worker complaining about immigrants coming into my town and taking my job, but they work harder and they produce more, but I'm in my comfort zone, right? So I blame them and I don't blame myself. Is
you
I
mean
feel
all
like
those people that finished those coding boot camps and are coming into take our jobs, us university educated folk?
yeah, so like the thing is like honestly, I think it's great that all of a sudden it's like software development is fashionable, right? I think I told you back in the day that my graduating class for the computer information science program, 12. Now, psychology majors and communications majors, those the majors that people just go to school and like they don't really, I'm going to offend people, but people that major in psychology or communications, they just go to school just because that was part of their life's plan, right? But
Yeah,
that's it. Like they don't really, they expect to get a job, but they just took the easiest path anyway. So it's like 400 apiece with them, and it's like only 12 of us. But I guess the point that I'm kind of going scatterbrain is I kind of get disappointed that I had to go through so much training. I had to basically give 6 years of my life, 3 years at Cuyahoga Community College, another 3 years at Cleveland State University. And then I had to do another, this was I did 3 years concurrent as a co-op, but I had to do all this training to to basically be called a professional developer. And as you were alluding to, understand the internals of an actual computer, the heap, the stack, you know, theory that's written down on a whiteboard. Um, I had to learn all of this, but then like I feel like people are going into these boot camps. I don't know how long these boot camps are for, maybe 6 months, and they don't really. I understand that they probably have to do a lot of work outside of the classroom. I'm not going to take that away from them, but I feel like it's just an influx of developers that didn't have to. I'm speaking from ignorance, but they didn't have to put in the time to really appreciate and to really get vested into the career that they want. And as a result, I feel like it's harder to I feel like they don't appreciate. I don't know how to say this without offending people, but
No, I don't. I don't think. I think you're being. I mean, you're being honest about a feeling that
I feel
that
like
yeah.
employers are taking college educated grads for granted. And that I think there's still an advantage for the amount of training that we have and the fact that we have demonstrated that we can stick with 4, 5, 6 years of staying with a project, completing the degree. And I'm just not sure that boot camps are delivering people that have demonstrated grit. To me, if you get a computer science degree, I would like to believe that you've demonstrated grit, that you can stick with a project towards completion. And I'm just not sure if you can put boot camps on the same.
Well, I mean, plenty of those people. I mean, you're kind of equating it to the assumption. So let's just say the logical assumption is, man, you're right out of college or right out of high school. They go to a boot camp and now they're a thing. But these people, I mean, people coming out of boot camps may have gone to and worked through major projects as in different career sects, and now they're trying to say, hey, I don't want to do psychology or I don't want to do nursing. I don't want to do these anymore. But I don't want to go back and do another 6 years or 4 years to get a computer or 2 years to get a computer science thing. I just want to get started in another career. And then they bring along a different set of skills that I guess could be valuable from the standpoint of team communication and dynamics and all that kind of stuff. Um, what
Yeah, I get that
yeah,
point.
but I think I mean there is definitely an emotional response there. I think maybe a component to that of just like, God damn it, I put in the time. And all these people just flooding in here. It's like they don't have to do anything as complicated as I had to do. Like there's no gatekeeper for this anymore. Yeah, I can see that. But I mean, if you look at the reality of tech jobs, though, it doesn't take like computer science isn't about preparing you for a job necessarily. I mean, it's a theoretical thing. It's closer to like studying physics if you think about it. And they do have a big programming part of it because that's what is a feeder for jobs. But I mean, it's almost a theoretical thing. It's not applied if you take it in its purest form. Software engineering is applied, but we don't have as many programs out there that teach software engineering. And CIS is kind of applied too. But it doesn't take like it doesn't take that kind of thing to like I said, push a button around a page a little bit, you know, um, or to make a HTTP request to server after button clicked, read a form in and post it to the server, like, write to a database and do the exact same 4 operations over 5 or 6 different, like I think 80% of what we do in the tech industry is actually not that complicated.
Well, if
um,
it's not, then why do we have so many failed projects, which we don't really talk about? I just had an interview with, I don't know his last name, Jamie. He has a YouTube channel called The Healthy Programmer or a Healthy Developer. And I recorded with him like 3 hours ago. Um, But like I was having a conversation, and I'm losing my train of thought. Where what were you just talking about?
But it's not that difficult to get this stuff done. Like most software isn't that difficult.
Oh yeah. So you're a full time employee, I assume.
I'm a contractor,
Oh, you're a
but yeah,
okay.
I'm a full-time employee with my company that contracts. So I don't know what you would call me, but the code that I'm writing is on a contract basis for my employer.
As a contractor, are you going from shop to shop, or do they just keep renewing your contract?
No, we're kind of structured to be more of a long-term staff hog.
Okay.
So I'm staying with the same place. It'll be 2 years in June. So
No, I was just going to say that you say that their job is nothing but, from what I hear, you're saying that 80% of the actual work is like moving a button control, 3 pixels to the left or
yeah,
right.
no, I'm being, I'm overstating it, but um, yeah, or I'm using hyperbole. It's obviously there's complication to it. There's heft of complication, but um,
Yeah. I don't know. I know I'm hating on them, and I know it's not fair, just because they found a more intelligent way of getting through the system. Uh,
yeah.
but I was
Well, actually, what keeps me up more actually than that is just that because there's such a, I'm more worried about the long term outlook for wages and when you take in the influx of programmers, plus as AI gets more sophisticated, um, I'm 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 worried that like I can't imagine that 10 years from now that I'll be able to find I'll be in this and be making the same amount relative to like inflation and stuff like that. I don't know why, but I feel like it's like there's so many people going into this right
there's
now.
there's no bar.
Yeah.
Like there's no significant barrier to entry like lawyers or doctors. People can literally self-declare themselves or profess themselves as developers, professional ones. And you need to work on your smile and have a good, shiny personality in front of HR and whoever the decision makers are before they find you out. And I mean, I know I'm hating right now, but I, I, I I definitely think that things should be regulated. I definitely, as a grumpy older developer, I feel like I shouldn't even have to compete with people that haven't demonstrated as much, and that they can just get in and say, "Oh, I know XYZ.js," and that's it. But like Robert C. Martin says, sooner or later, there's going to be a major catastrophe, and then politicians are going to get involved, and they're going to pick our languages and pick a pick our tools in general, and then there will be a barrier to entry.
Yeah, well, it'll probably be more that in order to get government contracts, you have to do that because I don't think they could regulate the private sector like that as far as, you know, being able to professionally do something because there's no legalese to it like all other like other professions. I don't know.
Well, so have you? I'm just going to ask you straight up. Have you been a part of a failed software project?
Um, I don't know. I don't
Also,
know.
also means a project that was abandoned.
Abandoned. I don't know. I mean, I've
Oh,
seen them. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Um,
apparently you haven't, because every time that I've been on a project that has failed, I took it personal. right? The reason I mention it is I would think that with this influx of new developers joining the workforce, and with a continuing number of projects that fail, but companies are too embarrassed to report. Um, Regardless, I would think that as more projects fail, then the industry would like wisen up and start like putting some barriers. And we kind of saw this earlier where it wasn't really barriers, but it was more bragging rights. Like for example, I'm not even sure if this is still active, but a Microsoft, what is it, MCSD or whatever it's called with Microsoft, where like what do you know what I'm talking about? Where you have a certification, MSCD, MCSD,
Like a Microsoft certified something developer or
yeah,
whatever. Just those things. Yeah.
where like I've never, I don't think I've ever seen the requirement for that, but
Yeah.
it definitely would put you ahead of everybody else. The same thing with a Xamarin certified developer. Um, I guess sooner or later, I would think that as more and more, if there ever becomes transparency or higher visibility of failed projects, hopefully the industry would regulate itself. But it's not because there's hella failed projects all the time.
But you're
And
assuming but that's a huge assumption that the reason that any of those failed is because of the developers. And it was the developers' problem, and that they should be regulated in any sort of way. Um,
you don't think software projects that fail aren't usually based on the competency of the developers or developers being qualified to build those types of that type of software?
yeah, I think there's some that definitely go down that track for sure. Um, but a lot of it, I think, could be actually more organizational stuff, process stuff. Um,
I would
uh,
say premature decisions. Um, I don't know. It's the jury's out. I would love to hear someone's opinion on it. It's late for me, so I'm struggling to think coherently. But
yeah, yeah. I suppose it's what 10:36 over there, or something now.
yeah, it is. Hold on, we're on the same time zone, no?
No, no, I'm central. You're in Florida,
Minnesota?
right? Yeah, Minnesota Central. It's in the
Oh,
middle. I mean, it's west of Chicago. I'm pretty sure. So
apparently I don't know my geography,
you
but
got to get yourself a map and start. Oh, there's Minnesota,
let me
and
look.
a calendar, and put NDC Minnesota on it for next year.
Last thing. So I don't know if you've paid attention to like my tweets, but I've been like recording my rehearsals for a talk that I gave down here. And the last time I presented in front of a user group, it went very bad before my most recent talk. You know your talk is bad when you glance at the audience and they're all like on their cell phones or they're just like not interested and you just know that you should have went over your talk probably three more times. But this last one, man, I've recorded like four different YouTube videos of me preparing for it, and I got to a point where I felt like it was just very fluid, and I think I could really get into giving a conference talk as long as it's the same talk.
Yeah, it takes a. I mean, it takes a lot of work to get prep for a conference talk, but um, I mean, if you actually care and you really want to do a decent job, man, I prepped so hard for that one code mash, yeah, in January, and like up to the minute, like I decided when I was on the plane that I was going to actually transfer my slides over into Monogame and create a game out of my slides. Not an actual game, but just to have it like so I could get the visuals that look like a game and all that stuff like that. And um, so I was going that, and I was practicing like 5 or 6 times before. Um, like I don't know how many times I went over it and adjusted it and everything, but yeah, I mean, if you put the time in the practice, it's like it's not that hard to give a. I mean, it's time consuming, but it's like giving a decent conference talk isn't too bad if you just practice. Um, if you test it too, you're big into testing.
You mean test it in front of like a small user group before you, or a number of user groups before you put it inside of a conference?
No, not necessarily. I mean, if you can just get a couple people to give you honest feedback on it, I mean that's enough. Um, I mean, obviously you have to go through it yourself in front of people at least once to just really realize what goes flat and what doesn't. So there's things that you think might be funny or witty or will make sense, and then they'll just sit there and go, "What?" Um, so I mean, I gave both of the two talks I've given at the conferences I went to. I gave it to 2 or 3 people at work because we only have 2 or 3 other people than me in my actual contracting firm right now. But I gave it to them, and got some feedback and stuff like that. And
They were willing to take an hour of their time to listen to the whole thing.
yeah, we just did over lunch. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it worked out well. Um, but I mean, I haven't had a bad experience giving a talk yet. Both of the ones that I gave, I could tell people were engaged, and there were some, obviously there's some people that aren't as interested as others, um, but I mean, I think the one that I had in Code Mash, I mean, there was 100 people in the room, about 100 people in the room, and I didn't get really any bad reviews. I got some, well, I'd like to see more of this or less of this, but and then the one I gave on Phaser, Dave Rail was actually there, and Jose uh, Gonzalez was too.
Okay.
And that one went well. I didn't get any like bad feedback on it. I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know why anybody would be afraid of giving a conference talk, like other than the jitters you get like ahead of it
Did
that
you
you
still
would
get the
get.
jitters when
Yeah,
you?
everyone gets a jitters.
I mean, after you prepare for that talk so many times or rehearsed it so many times, did you still like catch anxiety?
Yeah, just yeah, right before it, and all of that. Um, yeah, I mean, I think everyone I've ever talked to gets a little bit of anxiety, except for Dave. I talked to Dave. He's like, no, I just went in there and just off the hip did it.
Well,
It's like,
David's a professional speaker. Like he talks to strangers like every day
yeah, yeah.
for an
but
hour.
but no, I mean, I've talked to a few other people, and everyone gets the jitters before you get even in front of people because there's I think it's an emotional response that you can't really control. So
So my strategy was, which you probably can't do at a conference talk, but my strategy was to engage the audience like literally by like asking them questions, and I knew that the majority of people would have like imposter syndrome and they wouldn't want to answer my questions, but there's always one person that knows they're smart. um, and so before I used to bribe people, I used to bribe them with candy, and whoever would like raise their hand and answer a question, I would like throw some candy at them. But but this last one, yeah, I think it was more interesting just because I made it more conversational, where I would ask them, the definition of object-oriented programming, and then I would ask them, all right, so what are the current struggles with that, this, and the other, and it was more of a dialogue, and it calmed me down a lot. Like when I'm actually having a conversation with somebody, even like right now, like it's chill. But if I'm like just papers in my hand and I'm just talking for a straight hour, like I'm gonna be in my head, like performance anxiety.
yeah, a couple other people I talked to said that their trick is when they get there, they'll to try to curb the pre-talk jitters, they'll just go up and start talking to people in the crowd. I tried that, but it's like it's awkward for me. Like I have a hard time drumming up small talk um, for whatever reason. Uh, and so I'll just go and be like, I don't know what to say to you, but I'm trying to make myself less nervous. You know,
I've
how
done that
you
with
doing?
women.
Yeah.
I'll approach them on the beach like, I don't really have a line, but I'm trying to man up. What's up?
Yeah.
They just look at me funny. But
But yeah, you should give a talk at a conference. There's honestly no reason that I can think of that you wouldn't do great at it, and like I said, it's actually a good way from a like a just to hack your way into not paying a crap ton to go to a conference. Like you get accepted, all you have to do is pay for your travel, maybe, depending on which one it is. So
who actually gets paid to give talks? Like who gets paid, $5,000 or $10,000 to give a dissertation and then catch a flight back to the States or back to the UK? Is
I don't know.
that doesn't exist in software development. That only exists in like motivational speakers and
No, there's people that get paid to speak. And more conferences are trying to get on that bandwagon um, of actually doing paying them because technically they're getting a bunch of content and money, and you're basically donating your time, sort of, depending on who you are. But I don't know what the threshold would be before you start getting paid to do speaking. Like a guy like Robert Martin, if you wanted to come and have him talk to your developers, like that would be like $100,000. Probably it'd be really, really spendy. Not 100,000, but I mean, it takes a lot to get that guy in your
for
building to talk to someone.
for example, and I know we're going to wrap this up, but there's some famous conferences. Google has one. I forgot what it's called though. You know what the Google conference is called?
Is it IO or I can't remember.
Is it called I/O?
I don't know. I don't follow the Google
All right.
ecosystem very well. So
Whatever conferences have Robert Fowler, is that his name? And Jesse Tron or Jessica Kerr. Whatever conferences has those really big names. I'm curious how much money they make because I'm sure that they just don't fly up there and get a hotel. They have to be rewarded.
maybe I don't know. I think Jessica Kerr was. I think she was at both CodeMesh and KCDC, and they, unless they're doing stuff under the table, I don't think either of those do paid speakers. But they might do travel for special ones, maybe. But I
Okay.
don't know. A lot of times, I mean, I think that for most people that do conference speaking, the benefit is in what they is in the authority that it kind of gives them, just by the mere fact of saying that they're a conference speaker.
They
Like,
no
oh yeah,
longer.
I speak at tech conferences. That has a lot of weight to it, just in terms of like if you wrote the book on something, if you wrote a book on something, it doesn't matter if the book is great. If you're a published author on something, there's an additional weight added to what you say, whether or not you actually like it's so
Hopefully,
that
there's a significant increase to the hourly rate if you're
yeah.
a recognized conference speaker or an author.
Yeah, and so what happens is that so you can start getting into these jobs where you're doing more tech evangelist work, where you're always out at conferences and things like that's one route. But another is just to you get recognized and you get people are like, hey, uh, I saw you speak at this. We have this problem, at our company, and we need it fixed. And because you're speaking about it, I obviously know what you're talking about. So we need to bring you in and have you come work on this. So I think most people that speak at conferences are contractors or consultants that are looking for more work.
Hold up, who is Kyle Simpson?
I don't know.
Well, I'm looking at someone commented on here that Kyle Simpson costs $4,000 to attend and speak. I gotta Google that person, but
He's in
oh, he's
what
a
else? An author
JavaScript.
for, yeah, open web evangelist. So
Oh, there goes
yeah, I
your
mean,
competition.
yeah, I mean, at some point in time, you instead of being someone who submits to conferences, you're asked to go, and that I'm sure that the ask is what usually then could be paired with incentivizing. So, um, and I'm guessing it's your ability for the conference organizers, it's your ability to draw people in. Um, if you're one of the people that demands the big rooms at the conferences, I noticed when I went to KCDC, I was in one of the small rooms, um, not small, super ones, but I was a first time speaker, so it made sense, and the room was fairly well packed. Then I felt kind of cool at Code Mash because I had the kind of like the next level up room. Like it wasn't the smallest rooms;
You
it
didn't
was
have a
like,
Sky Hanselman room.
yeah, but yeah, I'm not like I think the two big ones there were Corey House and he's gotten really big. And John Skeet, they had like the main like food area conference area. So like they had a lot of capacity for their talks, kind of a thing. So I mean, if you think if I don't know how much conference speakers actually drive people go to things, but um,
They do. They do.
yeah,
I like 4 years ago, it was like 3 in the morning. I woke up here in Miami and I knew that there was like the Tampa Code Camp, something like that. And I was looking at the program and I saw John Samas was speaking. I'm like, oh, John Samas is going to be speaking? Oh, I need to meet this guy. Like, he's a beast at what he does. I need to meet him. And so I literally drove like 5.5 hours to Tampa, like at 3:30 in the morning to meet him. And yeah, so I'm sure there's people like me. I'm sure there's groupies that will fly out somewhere. I did the same thing with Mark Seaman, Scott Blashin. Like I literally spent almost close to like $3,000 going to NDC London, the flight, the hotel, kicking it, with them. Not with Scott Blashin, but I kicked it with the .NET Rocks people and Mark Seaman and a couple others. And yeah, it was important, man. It was groupie mode, but at the same time, like I just have a huge amount of respect that like I really want to like see them in person and have a chance to like talk to them and pick their brains and for them to know who I am. So there's people out there like that.
yeah. You ever gonna go back on .NET Rocks?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I contribute something. So like last time I was on .NET Rocks, I hopefully I introduced to the development community that you can build mobile apps using functional programming languages. And so that's how I got on the show that time is I told them that, hey, I've been building this healthcare application. It uses Xamarin and F Sharp. And I don't think most people know that that's possible, but it is. And I would like to share this with your community. And so they had me on. And I think that show did really good. Um, the next one, I don't really have a subject yet, but hint hint, I'm spending a lot of time researching event sourcing, and so more than likely I'll probably ask to get back on their show to discuss event sourcing and F sharp and how to make that play nice with whatever database solution, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've never really thought I have anything worthwhile that I would even ask to go on their show about. But like, I mean, I get into a lot of really obscure little things, especially around game programming. But yeah, I don't know.
Did, did you ever? I promise I'm wrapping up. Did you ever?
I've got all night, so yeah,
Did
yeah,
you ever mess around with Unity and F Sharp? I remember like maybe a year ago, I think you were asking me about F Sharp and
game program.
what would it be like to build a game? And they have some YouTube videos on F Sharp and Unity.
Yeah, there's actually a full like. Well, I haven't looked at F Sharp and Unity, but there is an entire game engine built in F Sharp. Gosh, I can't remember what it's called, but it exists. Um, and I don't think it's real built around monogame or whatever. I think that I've thought about it a lot, and I think that the challenge to build a game engine that isn't highly specialized to the particular thing, to build something generic, um, I feel like it would be a mess with garbage collection. Like it'd be really hard to optimize so that you're not producing, at least in .NET world,
I mean, that's
producing
.NET
a
in
ton of,
general.
yeah.
The thing
Um,
is like it doesn't. So F Sharp, it fully, with emphasis on fully, supports object-oriented programming. It's just why would you do it in F Sharp if F Sharp is geared towards functional programming? Like it encourages functional programming. And I thought game development or game programming is all about state change or
yeah.
mutation.
Well, I mean, it's mutation because it's the only reason it needs to be that is that it's because it's performant to do state changes, right? Um, you have a fixed memory slot. You just change the what's in memory at that exact moment in time, or over time or whatnot, and you're not spending a lot of time allocating new memory and collecting old memory, which is why I think that it would be very difficult to create a generalized one that's actually performant, that's following pure functional. I'm probably totally wrong on that. There might be ways to do it with threading and signaling and stuff like that. It's just it's not an obvious solution. But yeah, I mean, but if you think about it, a game loop is really it is a pure function every time. I mean, it could be a pure function every time. Um, and then you would have just the side effect of outputting to a screen or whatever and reading input. But the actual update call that you make is literally it's the previous state plus time plus input. I mean, that produces second next state, and you could presumably record the state every moment of the time and play it back with different inputs and stuff like that. There's the same inputs and all that. So it's all it could be all reduced to a pure function, and that would be really sweet to do. But again, the performance of every time you have to create this stuff or fill up your stack or whatever with it, I haven't really figured out a good way around that. I think the only way to do it would be to have like little like more like an Erlang thing where you've got like different processes out there and you're feeding process information back and forth with messages to actors, and so
Uh,
you have to use parallelism to get it to work.
or a quantum computer.
Yeah.
Um,
So I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting problem, which is why, like I said, game programming, you could take just about anything you're interested in and say, well, how could I'm going to use this to make a game, and then it gives you a lot of or a lot of different um, problems to solve. But you should try it though.
well,
Try some game programming.
I want to see how they set up their solution. Like, I want to see like the projects and the solution, like how they architect it. Like, I want to see how that stuff looks.
You mean from like so like if you're doing in Unity or whatnot, I mean it's really literally just a bunch of scripts. But if you're building your engine from scratch, I mean it's if, at least in .NET world, it's not going to be much different than how you would organize code in a standard,
Mm,
console app.
okay, you haven't looked at my solutions, have you?
Maybe. You still put
Uh,
everything into partial classes? No.
yeah. I don't use regions. I use partial
Yes,
classes.
please never. Nobody should use regions. In
They do.
fact,
I
is
looked
there?
at a code base uh yesterday at an interview because I told them I want to look at their code base before moving forward. And yeah, they use regions everywhere, and I'm like, oh god.
I hit some code today with some regions in it, and I'm like, well, crap, I got to remove these. So I thought at first the complicated way to do it. I'm like, all right, I just did a find and replace on all the end regions, and then I'm like, crap, well, how do I get rid of just remove the begin regions? And I was thinking about this complicated way to just go through and try to find them using the regex in the find and replace. And then I realized I could just replace begin region with or whatever the begin region tag is with just a comment, slash slash. I'm like, oh, that works great to get rid of these. So, but yeah, I'd actually pay for a feature that like just removed automatically regions. Like just never you can't collapse them. Nope. So
I'm trying to see if it lets me paste you a snapshot. Oh, how can I show you a image on here of what my solutions look like?
I don't know. I mean, you can share screen, but
I could
you
probably
might have
send it.
stuff you
I
don't
could
want
send it to you on Twitter.
to. Yeah, I don't know if you can.
That thing that I'm trying to get away from. Here you go.
I don't know. Can you drop it in chat or?
I dropped it in Twitter.
No.
So this is the way I build solutions. I pretty much have a library per related set of features, such as access. There's an access library, which is responsible for logging in, logging out. There's a portfolio library for all the stuff that deals with someone's portfolio. There's a profile library that deals with it's pretty much an
Yeah.
account, a user account.
So you subscribe to the vertical slice kind of vertical slice structure type thing where you
Yep.
organize by features.
And then, so like, this is what I think with Robert C. Martin, this is my attempt at Robert C. Martin's screaming architecture. And you'll see that I have like libraries that scream what the actual application is meant for. And then you'll see an integration folder. The integration folder is going to have all the libraries that are related to IO, whether it's UI or repositories or anything that the application logic needs to handle. I throw all that under an integration folder. And that's pretty much it. And that just plugs into the main features of what the application was intended for. So my domain models are all going to be individual projects within the solution. And then the actual application and all the IO stuff is going to just be thrown inside of they're going to be separate libraries, but they're going to be all hosted under an integration folder. So hopefully anybody can just look at this, know what it does, and you could just throw developers at it. And I think it's more scalable if you do vertical slices of features, because now you have like these projects or libraries that are siloed from one another. That's the thought process.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of what I've seen with gosh, what is it? I've seen it this way. Is another thing with Jimmy Board? I've seen it where basically everyone takes the entire all layers and puts them into including like you have there with the integration stuff, including like the web layer, traditional layer or whatever, or database type layer stuff, and puts it all in one vertical slice. Um, so this is kind of like a hybrid. Your domains more split out, which is actually inverted from what I've seen. Come to think of it, I've seen it where it's had a common domain project, and then separate vertical slices for the application. Huh.
Yeah. I'll show you what some of the code looks like. It's going to look cryptic just because, but I don't know. I'll show you one small example real fast. I like this functional programming, man, because it's like, I don't know. I was getting bored. I was thinking about doing Java development because I just wanted to do something new. But like, I really get into this now with this
Yeah.
whole F sharp thing because it's like it's fun. It's a different way of putting together a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, it's I was thinking about that, and like I've liked learning about functional programming because it's a paradigm shift and it makes you think differently. I've kind of thought though for a while that I wonder if some of the push to it is that developers are bored writing the same thing over and over again. And so they want something that has some sort of weight to it that means they can write it differently.
Yep.
Because it's not, it is in some ways it can seem more complicated. I know it's smaller, but like if we go back to procedural code, and even just dump object oriented, it's a lot easier to follow procedural code. But
COBOL.
well, I'm
Um,
thinking like C, like just well, anyways,
I have an associate's degree in mainframe programming in COBOL.
you should just go back to COBOL is what it is because you know that's where all the huge, big paying consulting things are going to be here very very shortly.
I wonder what the bill rate for it is. I know it's hella money, but like they literally would have to pay me to write COBOL.
You should
Like,
shop around for that though. Just see what it is. Go and find some COBOL consulting. I don't even know how do you even find work as an independent consultant. Like, are you perusing like stuff and just sending out your resume? Like,
so do you want like the way that most consultants probably get work, or the way that I get work?
the way that you get work, because I mean, I usually most consultants that I've known have been they most of them start consulting for the company that they have worked for or they're already working for, and then it kind of opens their door to other things. Or they go through like a contracting firm and then they get a lot of context and then they go independent. But
So the way that I get contracts is I go on Career Builder specifically, and with Career Builder I can type in like a framework or a programming language, and I won't even put in like the actual location. I'll just leave the location blank, and it'll show me all these areas such as Los Angeles or Hicktown, USA, whatever. And with Career Builder, as soon as I apply for one job, I can automatically apply for like 20, 30, 40 similar jobs in that location by just hitting like apply all button, and it'll just spam out my application for all those different job descriptions. And so I'll probably spend maybe 10 minutes of my morning just spamming a whole bunch of different jobs with my application based on whatever job description that they posted. And there'll be uh, there'll be probably like maybe 5% of those job postings, like they'll respond back to me, and then it's like 0.001% that actually becomes successful in getting a contract. So that's a short answer of how I get contracts. Probably a normal consultant, they probably get contracts through referrals because they're probably more pleasant to work with. Uh,
I can't imagine you not being pleasant to work with. Come
I'm
on.
a I'm a militant, man. Like because and this is kind of the conversation I was having with Jamie earlier. It's like because I'm getting paid twice as much as like the full time employees, like I have this huge amount of pressure to deliver value like it's like on my very first day. And so I'm busy trying to make progress, but almost always end up battling the full-time employees because they're not ready for that type of change that quickly, from day one. And so, people start getting upset and, egos flare up, etc. So usually the people that do refer me are like my mentors. Um, yeah. So they usually recruit me over to some of the jobs that or some of the gigs that they get, and then they, if there's an opening, then they ask me if I want to work with them. That's pretty much it.
Hmm. That's a good way
Uh,
to land them, anyways.
before I terminate this, Damien, I don't know if you're still viewing this. Is there anything you want to ask or anything you want to comment on before we terminate? And I guess I'll give them like maybe 30 seconds or something, and then I'll call it a night.
Yeah. There's usually a little bit of a lag between when they get the video. So, how's the YouTube stuff going, anyways, for you? I haven't been keeping up with like anyone or anything. So,
I don't even know how many subscribers do I have. Keeping up as in like people that are actually interested in what I talk about, or just am I still active?
you active creating content and how's it going overall?
I don't really talk to people as much, like recording conversations like I'm doing with you right now. I've really been using YouTube to pretty much, this is going to sound kind of weird. To get motivated about either studying or practicing some new concept, I literally have to, I, I, I feel the need to record myself, and somehow that gives me motivation to like at least do like half an hour to an hour of practice in something that I'm uncomfortable with. So I've pretty much been using, if you look at like the videos for the past like 2 or 3 months, I've literally been like just recording myself writing code and thinking out loud to myself, and just training my mind by like just speaking out loud as I'm recording how I'm writing code. And then some videos I get stuck and I get embarrassed, so I just delete it because I don't want employers to see it.
You just start doing live streaming on Twitch or something like that.
Life Music says, "What is this about?" Um, it's about software development. So I guess
So,
Damien left. So he's somebody in Miami that attends the same user group, .NET Miami user group.
huh.
Uh, all right, so that's it. I don't see anything on the chat boards. So, yo, thanks for talking to me. I need people to talk to sometimes. I get lonely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as much as I talk to a lot of people, it's always nice catching up with you. So, yeah, I haven't been as public or as social publicly, I guess, as I was a couple years ago. So, but all right.
Um, like a weird like signal loss, but
Huh. Well, it might be Google trying to tell us something.
yeah. All right, Sean. Well, I'm done. I'm tired.
Yeah, it's getting late.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks again. I'm about to hit the stop broadcast button. Is there anything else you want to say before I hit end?
no, hey, you should try to make a game before next time we do this. Just give it a try. Live stream it, I'll watch it. get 100,000 followers.
What website would you recommend for someone to onboard
To someone on board for games, like,
to make a textual based game or something?
oh gosh, you know what? The thing
I
is,
bought two Unity books
you don't
and
need a website. Just you just gotta do. You know what? If you want something interesting to try out. Go find this thing called Pico 8 and learn some Lua.
okay.
It'll be an interesting experience for you.
Pico 8 and learn some Lua.
Yeah, which is
All right.
scripting language. It's your favorite. So
I thought Lua was like you use images to program or something like that.
no,
No.
Lua's gosh, I don't even know what would be close. It's close to like a basic like language, I think. It's scripted. It's highly embeddable, which is why it's used a lot in game programming. But Pico 8 is like a platform that for building like retro style games. It's a breed of things called fantasy consoles. So yeah, it basically you build all of your sprites and music and code right in the thing itself. So you'd probably hate it though because the editor's right in the thing. So you have to deal with this kind of like rudimentary editor. It's probably difficult for a professional programmer, but anyways.
I'll read up on it. That might be as far as I get.
Yeah, or just you know what, like just open up a terminal and or like a console app and just make something.
Has it made you a better developer experimenting with game development?
Um,
Or
yeah, I think so for a variety of reasons. Mostly because it's a good way to practice, like you said. It gives you content to actually work towards because there's a lot of things you can do in it, and it's also different from your normal day-to-day crap of writing CRUD applications because you're writing more real-time stuff. So and stuff like performance matters.
oh yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's not just doing the same thing over and over again. It's actually a different domain than what you're used to probably. So I mean, not having to get a database at all going, don't need it. Like so, and you have to make art or find art usually.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with Windows Paint or
Yeah,
Microsoft Paint.
that's a
Yeah.
good place to start, man.
I just don't know how to make transparent backgrounds in Microsoft Paint.
Yeah, you can't. But if you get the thing called paint.net, which
I
is
had
free as long as you go to the Windows store,
I had a GIMP. It's
or
some
GIMP,
open
yeah.
source thing. Stuff is complicated, man. I mean, maybe it's not. It just looks complicated.
Yeah, you have to get familiar with it. Inkscape's another good one for vector graphics, but that they all take a while to get used to. But you watch some tutorials and good to go.
All right, yeah. After Nikeza, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All
I'm
right.
hitting the stop broadcast
I know. I
button.
think you're gonna fall asleep here. So
Yeah, I'm tired, man.
yeah, no, let's go.